I want to show the true history, the erased history of Arianism, that the whole entire historical context of Islam was based in Arianism, that the Bishop Arius was from up here by area of Libya, so he was from the Libya area. These are all of the Christians down here would have mostly been Arian Christians, so they would have been Christians that they word it very selectively so that you don't understand that all of these Arian Christians mostly would have spoken Arabic or calling God Allah, calling God Rahman, in from 370 AD up until 525 AD. As you can see, that the persecution that was happening here was a war. A religious war was happening, and there was a sect of some type of monotheistic sect of a Jewish tribe or something of that nature, like a Arab-based tribe that followed a monotheistic sect of a Jewish nature, and they were somewhere in this area. And so there was a religious conflict going on down here. And that's where this battle, some of these battles took place, and a lot of these Arian Christians were persecuted. So, but just to show the actual Arian history that they're trying to erase, it's right here. His name was Theophilus. They call him Theophilus the Indian, was an Arian monk. Theophilus was ordained a bishop. Zoom in. Theophilus was ordained a bishop around 354 AD. So he's an Arian bishop and leader. And so they started out as bishops, spreading the Arian Christian message of the monotheistic message of God. So these were already the Muslims. They believed in Tawhid. So this was a whole Islamic Christianity that was all over North Africa and the Middle East that's been erased from world history. Through the false prophet that came later, around 354 AD, Emperor Constantine's family was Arians. Constantine's son was usurped when they created the Byzantine Empire in 381 AD. So Constantine's family were Arians, meaning monotheistic. They believed in Tawhid, the oneness of God, which is Islam. They believed in Allah, Rahman. These Arians went to Arabia, via Arabia. Theophilus, the monk, Arian monk, went on a mission to spread Arianism all over Arabia. Sound familiar? It is. That's the whole entire setting of the coming of Islam. And the ones that all accepted the Prophet was among these people when he said to have converted the Himyarites. Those are the Yemeni people around Arabia, were these monotheistic Christians. So they continued, they were Christian all the way, and they believed in the oneness of God, Tawhid, the Father, Allah, and they regarded Jesus as highly as you can esteem the Prophet as serving as a king and servant of God in heaven. So the honor and worship toward him was not as though he's equal to Allah. That would be the difference. That would be the distinction. They would be worshiping Allah as the Most High, in this sense, through Jesus. It's not totally clear how they would have originally understood it, but we can see that in the Quran over and over again. The Quran condemns seeing him as equal to Allah. It's putting someone beside Allah, putting someone before Allah. So they saw Jesus as the highest one in God's counsel, the highest one in God's kingdom, the highest reflection of service to God was in Christ. And Christ was the most highly exalted one in heaven. So Emperor Constantine's son, was an Arian Christian. These were all Arians. These were all Romans connected to all throughout Arabia. This is Rome. This is the original Roman leadership under Constantine is in Arabia now, because they're being persecuted. They're being driven out. They set up in Arabia. So this is the leadership of the original the original Romans, the original people that were Christian, were these Muslims. That's the true history that's been erased. He wrote to Zana, and they were then being persecuted by 523 AD by Dunuas, who was not a Christian king. He was a part of a monotheistic sect that was there. So Muhammad is coming along in 500 AD. Muhammad is up here in Jordan. Muhammad sends all of these followers down here to the king of Abyssinia, and they go across this area. They're all around, spreading out all around here for like 20 years or so, for years. And then Muhammad comes down to Medina, and he's then made king by Abraha, right? He's made a king. And then they cut off the trade with these people because they started siding with the Byzantine Empire. See, the Byzantine Empire came down here and was like, hey, let's make a deal. Let's start making them obey the Byzantine church. And all of these Arians were like, no, we're following the original tradition. They cut them off. They followed then they had the Quran. They were following Muhammad, was made a king. So Muhammad is now like a bishop, a prophet, and then a king. So Muhammad was made a king, and then Muhammad ends up leading this revolution, up through here, back up to try to cut off the Byzantine Empire. They're all coming together, trying to stop this invasion, against their church, which they see as the original church. And that's when during this battle, Muhammad is killed. Muhammad is martyred. So Muhammad is now seen as a martyr, a king and a prophet and a martyr. So they started highly honoring Muhammad, and continued to be Arian Christians. They never stopped. For the next 250 years, this is just Arian Christianity. That's all the coins show crosses. The sect that later took over Islam is not the original people that followed Muhammad. The real Muhammad was here in this time period, as we can see. Muhammad was living in 492 to 524 AD. That's the time period Muhammad's living in, the real Muhammad. And he's an Arian leader. He's an Arian Christian bishop. Then seen as recognized as a prophet by these people all around here. These Arians are all coming together, recognizing him as a prophet and then a king. He's made a king. So now they have a kingdom. Now they have the idea of a kingdom for their Arian roots, and for using the Quran as a guide. The Quran was not replacing the original faith. It was a theological text, pretty much, to as a guideline. It wasn't being used to replace the Old and New Testament. It was being used to guide the Christians to a particular view of the theology of the oneness of God, the Holy Spirit, and Jesus. And it's like, obviously rejecting the Trinity doctrine idea, and they've embraced this new prophet, this Arian prophet, and that's what went on for the next decades. This is 525 AD. So they claim Muhammad came like 80 years later. He didn't. Or in 50 years, they're claiming Muhammad was born in 570, putting him in the wrong time period, deliberately, because they know the facts, they know the truth. They want to cover that up. because it's not the Muhammad that they believe in. It's not the original religion. So that's the problem here. So we can see the full scope of the kingdom. These are all Arians. These are all Arians. None of these people are Trinitarian. None of these people are Trinitarian. They're all joining this kingdom. See, this kingdom, the Byzantine Empire, just came in here and was taking over, and these people all rose up. They all rose up to here, right? They all come up with Muhammad. Muhammad's martyr. They come up here. They divide the Byzantine Empire, and then they start to spread out. They start to, you probably got Byzantine people joining them, agreeing with the Arian Orthodox doctrine. You had a Byzantine emperor join Muhammad in Egypt over here, and then you have all these Arians, all these Vandals that joined these are all Arians. These are all monotheistic Christians that still believe in Tawheed. So they all see Muhammad as this leader, right? All of these Arians come up here, and all these Arians are over here. And what do you think happens? They all followed the prophet, the king and prophet Muhammad. They all see him as a prophet. Now they all saw him as a king and a martyr. So they start to, exemplify Muhammad as this great leader. And, later they start to take it a little too far. They over 100, 200 years went by, and the people down here are now creating a new religion in this area, and they started to take over as those that took over the Islamic sect. So what was Catholic, Orthodox, Arian Christians following Muhammad as a leader, following him as a prophet, a prophetic leader, and then a king, and then a martyr. You see the development here. You see the problem. You see this is the travel of all the Arian Christians that all came up through here, the Vandals, and this is the Vandal kingdom. The main Vandal kingdom was the Andalusian kingdom, was around here in Spain and around the seas. These are all Muslims. They all believe in Tawheed. They all joined when the Arians came across through here. All of these people joined the same ranks. The Berbers remained in this area, and the Berbers many of the Berbers were of Vandal origin, and many other peoples. But these were people, Arian Christians coming from Western Europe, Northern and Western Europe down in here, and they were also would have been Muslims. They would have become Muslims. These were the early Arian Christians. And in the kingdom of Aksum right here, being the Aksumite state that was in Arabia, as you can see. So this whole state joined at one point. He joined with Muhammad. The king agreed with Muhammad, and then the Byzantines came in and they took over. So the king originally had agreed with Muhammad. He said, I agree with your doctrine and your people. They all can come here, and they all came here. They all came and lived around here, and they lived all over here. These were the Muslims. These were the followers of Muhammad. The ones that they were, taking the Quran and reading it, and all these Arian Christians were like following him. They're like, the prophet, he's the real prophet. He's the prophet. That's what's actually happening. And they've tried to erase all of this, as you see, 530 AD. As you can see, this is all in 530 AD. 5 anywhere between 490 to 520 AD is this is all happening in a matter of 20 years, 25 years. All this history of Islam was then just wiped out and erased by the later people that took over. This is the true story of Islam. Arian Christians. These were the Byzantine Christians pushing this is the Trinitarian Byzantine Empire. And then you had the Persians over here following, Manichaeism and stuff like that. So there's like a couple different Christianities kind of fighting it out, in debate, and then it turned into a full-on division of the Roman Empire. And the Persian Empire then came in and took over the whole region. Persian Empire would have then came in and becoming all one caliphate. See, Arab. So we can see now the Arab Caliphate connected through Persia and with these Andalusian Arians. Then it spreads all the way over to Spain. So that was early Islam, was a Christian civilization of Orthodox Arian Catholics. What they saw as orthodoxy, following a bishop, a prophet who became a prophet, and then a martyr, a king and a martyr, and that's when all of this took place. So the descendants of these people with these Arians that were already there under Constantine's son, who was also a Muslim. Constantine's son, a European-looking face, he was a monotheistic Christian. He believed in one God and Tawhid. These were not Trinitarian Christians. Constantine died as an Arian Christian.